Welcome back. Welcome in. It's Country Roads Confidential at earsports.com. It's a Paramount podcast. I am Mike Casaza, and I have a lot of time on my hands, Chris Anderson. Or do I? 68 teams are picked for the NCAA tournament today. 68 head coaches will take their team to some location. West Virginia and Darian DeVries not included. And yet, I don't think our news and headlines are done here for reasons we get into. Darian DeVries linked to at least two major job openings right now. We can get to that. Let's jump right into this, Chris. I I'm surprised that West Virginia is not in. I can make the argument that the committee made why they should not be in. I'm not sure that's popular, but I was shocked when they beat UCF and DeVries, who has played so many things so close to the vest this year. Upper extremity, lower extremity, whatever. For him to come out and say, it's a lock now, we're in the tournament. Okay, huh. And then lose to Colorado. Maybe he knew something I didn't know. He did not know something I did not know because they're left out. And I can get that. I can explain that if you'd like. My explanation does not hold up with other teams that made the field ahead of West Virginia. And that's where I have a hard time leveling this. I can argue why the Mountaineers should be in. I can argue why they shouldn't be in. The argument I would make for excluding them would apply to teams that made it ahead of them. And I do not understand that. And I can see people being mad. I can see people being resigned to the fate. And I guess this is why they call it March Madness.
Yeah, it's hard to kind of check everything with whatever explanation is going to be. I think I told you right before I came on here because you and I are popping on to do this podcast rapid reaction style. So not a lot of time has passed since the moment we realized that West Virginia wasn't making it. But as we were prepping for this, I saw the NCAA tournament chair hop on there, and they didn't at this point in time that I was watching ask specifically about West Virginia being out. Well, did ask about UNC being in, and as the tournament chair attempted to sheepishly answer the question, glancing away from the camera, there on the graphic right next to his head was UNC 1-12 in quad one games, highlighted by CBS right next to his forehead. It's mind boggling. I think I put it out there incorrectly at first and then corrected, but three of the teams that were the last four in UNC, Xavier, and San Diego State combined for five quad one wins. West Virginia alone had six. Going through and looking at some of the stuff here, um, 29 teams had six or more quad one games and zero three or four quad three or quad four losses. West Virginia was one of them, and they ain't in. Um, it's kind of shocking. I think we have to go back and check what the matrix was on every single projection. I update on our site the main two, CBS Sports and ESPN. I looked at a few others. Every single one had West Virginia in. Every single one did have West Virginia sliding in recent days. I mean, there was some after the UCF win, I believe, where after Utah and UCF, it was like 8 seed maybe. Then when we woke up this morning, the projections were 10 seed, 11 seed, first four game.
Yep.
So, the data, the info, whatever was trending in that direction. But to see them completely left out and see a couple of the teams that made it in over them is just mind boggling.
Let's start there. So this morning, I've believed that they were in for some time. I thought they were going to be okay when they were losing repeatedly in the middle of the season. I just thought they would get their act together, and I thought they did enough to get there. Super concerned after the Colorado game just because you're out so early, and who knows what happens in conference tournaments. Conference tournaments were not unfriendly. I think in the end, you're going to look at that and say it wasn't bid stealers and one bid leagues becoming two bid leagues or two bid leagues becoming three bid leagues because an automatic bid goes to somebody who wouldn't made the field. There's some of that. The culprit is the Mountain West Conference and the SEC. Um, that's by far. Mountain West gets five teams in and probably deserving. I think four of them had nets higher than West Virginia. The exception of the five that made it is San Diego State, which was one spot below West Virginia. So at least comparable. The SEC, I don't get it. I don't get the 14, and especially some of the numbers next to their names. Chris, I said I would quit if Oklahoma made the tournament. They were 4-10, I think, at the time. They ended up 6-12. They won a game in the conference tournament. I understand they had a great non-conference schedule, and I guess so did North Carolina. You know who else had a great non-conference schedule, Chris? Coppin State, Oakland of Michigan. You've got to win some of the games. Oklahoma did. I understand that. UNC's 1-12 record against Quad One, that is not a pass go collect $200 statistic for me. I understand that many of those games were outside of the conference because the ACC was down. So kudos to the Tar Heels for doing that. I don't know if they saw the future or not. I don't know that you can reward them for being bold when you don't win any of the games. I still thought that West Virginia was in when I woke up this morning and I'm looking at things and trying to figure it out. And I thought that if George Mason and UAB won, then the American and the Atlantic 10 become four teams instead of two out of those two games because George Mason and UAB is not making as an at-large. Memphis and probably VCU were. So instead of two automatic bids, you get two automatic bids and two at-larges, and that becomes a numbers crunch in the bubble. Chris, neither one of those teams won. Instead, your Utah States, your San Diego States. Did Boise State get in? I can't remember.
I don't remember hearing their name.
Okay, so
So
maybe they only got four teams in there. But again, that's a big number for a small mid-major conference that does play good basketball. But looking at some of the teams that did get in, and I just so for example, Louisville is the runner-up in the ACC. They're an 8 seed, a really good season for Pat Kelsey. The same conference gets UNC in. So how does a conference say you're runner-up in the tournament and a team that was very good? I think UNC plays second in the standing. Excuse me, Louisville played second in the standings in the season. How did they get an 8 seed? They're not rewarded for the way they played in the conference. UNC is. UNC also has arguably the worst loss for an at-large team. In this conversation, it's a quad three loss at home to Stanford. What's disqualifying and what's qualifying? I think that's going to be very difficult for people to wrap their heads around. Chris, though, it became apparent like almost right away. I think 6:06, I sent the DM to you. Just
yeah,
uh-oh. And listen, that's crazy because only one bracket had been revealed. But when your automatic qualifiers are getting 12 and 13s, those are usually lower numbers. West Virginia was not a 10. It was not a 10. So all of a sudden you're thinking, man, there's 4 11s for out there for the at-larges. Two of them got gobbled up into immediately into a play-in game, including North Carolina. Another one goes to Texas, which is a team I have a hard time understanding. Um, it just became pretty clear right away that this was going to be a very, very small plot of land the Mountaineers stood on, and they get bumped out of the end.
two things here, Mike. One, I'm currently, as you were talking there, going through old net rankings. Um, Kind of hard to find some of this information after like 2021. Net rankings came in what, 2019, 8 or 21,
Before
around there,
COVID, I
right?
believe.
So 2018, 2019 is when they started. I've gone through 2021. So far, never has a team had six quad one wins and zero quad three or quad four losses and made the tournament so far. So I'll update that later as we go through. I mentioned the NCAA tournament chair and how I saw him talking about UNC and why UNC was in. I am receiving messages from people as we speak through Twitter and DMs saying that they continued to watch and they did bring up West Virginia, and the tournament chair cited the lack of Tucker DeVries as a reason why West Virginia was let out. He is aware that Tucker DeVries has been out for 23 games now, 24 games now. Like, I mean, I know that's always a factor. How you play late in the season, how injuries or what roster you're actually bringing to the NCAA tournament is part of that. But Tucker DeVries has not played in a game in months. So I'm not sure how much that should be factoring into that right now. Go. Oh, you look ready to go.
I have takes. Chris, you got to win 6 games in a row to win the tournament. West Virginia has two-game winning streaks in their past 21 games. 23 of those games, 24 of those games were played without Tucker DeVries. He's out. He's not coming back. Your best player, second best player, is not coming back. And a team that has not consistently won with him, Again, you're talking 11 losses in the final 19 games. That matters at some point. And if one of your top players is not coming back, do you warrant a spot? Can you actually do something with it if you're given that spot versus somebody else who has played well at the end of the season, is fully stocked in their roster, and has similar measurables to you? I absolutely understand that. And again, that's part of the reason I can see why West Virginia does not get in. Some of their quality wins, Gonzaga, first time Arizona, um, Georgetown was a good win for a while, happened with Tucker DeVries, but he's not there. So you can understand that it is a twisted argument, but it does make sense. You need to be worthy, and sometimes healthy is worthy. The problem is, Chris, is that they got rid of some of those metrics. Like they wiped them out of their language. Like they used to be last 10. Your record in your last 10 games was a big deal, and I completely understand that. You should be playing well at the end of the year if you're going to be playing in the big event at the end of the year. But they got rid of that. That is absolutely part of the metrics that the committee uses in their head. It is like who's playing well at the end of the year. And West Virginia just wasn't, as evidenced by losing to a 16 seed in the conference tournament in a game you led by a lot. And if you break down what West Virginia is, how they have played, when healthy, when not healthy, yes, did some very good things early in the season. But when they've had their roster together for much of the season, they've been a pretty mediocre team in a very good conference. I understand that. But when you're 10 and 10, you're average in that league. And then you lose your conference tournament game. And okay, they got a bye, so you get a win. But then you lost. So if you count the bye as a win, because you earned that, right? The free advancement, you're 11 and 11. That's not going to move the needle. And again, your best player, one of your two best players, is not going to be back to bail you out of what it's been taking on water for a while. I get that. I just don't know how you can disqualify West Virginia with that criteria and allow some other teams in. Is UNC healthy? Sure. Is Oklahoma healthy? Sure. Oklahoma's an eight or nine, right?
Yeah.
Oof. Texas is a playing game like North Carolina. I have a hard time understanding that, and I would need somebody to say, if not West Virginia, why UNC, why Texas? And I haven't heard that, haven't seen that, and that's something that I would like to have an explanation for. Will I get it? Probably not, and that's what makes this probably frustrating for a lot of people because you could very easily argue in, argue out, but you could do the same thing with the same arguments to other teams.
My counter argument is West Virginia still has more quad one wins without Tucker DeVries than UNC for the entire season.
Can you build a resume, Chris, on wins over Cincinnati, UCF, Utah, TCU? Because at that point, how are you different than a Mountain West team, a mid-major league that has teams that are comparable to those as regular opponents?
Oh, but I
It's
feel this is where we're getting into the whole football thing again. Because I mean, the stats, the nets, the net, the number of the things that they're supposed to be using to determine what teams get in say that Cincinnati's a decent team, that Utah winning on the road at Utah is a quad one, is a good win, all of that stuff. But it feels like now we're getting into it again. I have to go back and watch. I haven't seen exact everything he said. I only saw the first couple of minutes, but it reeks to me of the same arguments of the early years of the college football playoff when West Virginia was involved in that conversation. And the guys on the committee would rank West Virginia much lower than anybody else that was out there. And they would be asked why, and they'd come up with reasons. And one time, I believe it was even like, yeah, well, they lost to so and so. And it was like, yeah, the team that you have in front of them also lost to that team and lost another one. So what's your argument? And then it was just, oh, well, we just think the other team's better. So is that what we're going with? Are we getting back to the, hey, we just think that that team's better? Then none of this other stuff matters. That actual results don't matter. The criteria that we lay out as a committee and say that we are looking at and that are important, that actually doesn't matter. It's just kind of what we think. Just six, eight, 10 guys sitting in a room being like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, I kind of feel like that team's better. I hate that. I loathe that. And I feel like we're getting closer and closer to more of that. I mean, that's what college football has become. And I feel like we're getting closer and closer to that with NCAA tournament too.
and again, you make a point here in brushing back on mine, but I think you do back it up. If you're saying, man, winning at Utah is not a quad one win, I understand that.
Yeah.
That's not an especially good team. Fired its coach, maybe gave up on the team in the season. I understand that. is, are some of these wins that are high quad twos or quad ones, are they really impressive wins? Oh, I get that. So now if we're not valuing that, is that why UNC gets in at 1 and 12, but the quads don't matter? It's hard to level up. And again, there's no way to explain this, and I don't know how you standardize this. You can't standardize it. And here's perhaps the big problem. And now, Chris, we can put on the tinfoil hats. Are you ready?
Sure.
Do you know who the chair of the selection committee is?
Go ahead, tell me.
Bubba Cunningham, athletic
Oh
director,
God,
University of North Carolina.
I can't
You know
believe
who
that,
one of the sitting
Michael.
athletic directors is?
Who's
Greg
that?
Byrne, Alabama, which set a record 14 teams into the tournament. Um, if you want to fire off some spicy postcards to somebody, maybe get an email going. Chad Weiberg, Oklahoma State's AD, is on the selection committee. Um, West Virginia did a number on his team at the start of the season with a player who was on his roster last season. I'm not saying anything is, uneven or unlevel or under the table there, but like, could he have done more? Was he outnumbered in the room? If that is the first team out of the conversation, I'm not saying he didn't do enough, but what forces were working against him? Also in the room, Minnesota's athletic director, the commissioner of the Sun Belt Conference, Georgetown's athletic director, saw West Virginia this year, Samford's athletic director, the Big Sky commissioner, Temple's athletic director, Manhattan's athletic director. We know Manhattan hates West Virginia. Been there, done that. The West Coast Conference Commissioner and the Abilene Christian Athletic Director. Listen, that's a diverse and robust group, but I wonder how much weight can be thrown around by some people and who could do more in that situation. Is that group big enough? Can you have enough cooks? Can you have too many cooks in the kitchen when you have a decision like this that has to be made? That's another one that I had to figure out too.
Yeah, I forgot about the Bubba coming because he was sitting there, Cunningham, on the television that I watched. He was sitting there, and I wonder if, and maybe this is why, and I didn't catch the other guy's name, but the other guy was the one speaking, explaining why UNC made it. I wonder if they were like, hey, it's probably a bad look if Bubba Cunningham comes on here alone to explain why his team made it over so many other teams with better resumes. And so they had a secondary speaker from the committee up there also saying this, but oh, just whew. Hey, here you go. I got something for you. And I'm
Oh,
checking. Let me make sure it hasn't already happened yet. No, 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 no. Nothing like that. Um,
Iowa or Indiana related?
no, it is not. We're
Okay.
going to get there in a second, but let me ask you this real quick before we get to that. Does Ren Baker or Darren DeVries release a statement this evening? Question one: does Darren DeVries or Ren Baker release a statement this evening, blasting the committee or saying something?
Yeah. I
Question
mean,
two:
maybe like we're disappointed, but we're proud of our team. It might be smart for Rem Baker to do that. But I mean, the guy was in Charleston with his coach to watch his daughter play in the state tournament this week. I don't know that Darren DeVries needs more support from his
yeah,
coach. If they want to do something in solidarity, they're not going to flame the selection committee. It doesn't do any good. But could they do something? We're proud of our team. Get your season tickets. Um, See you at the Gold Blue showcase. Maybe something like that is in order, but I don't strategically, cathartically, I don't know that they have anything up their sleeve. Now, you
question
know that
two.
they did close off, they didn't close off the media, but they had no media availability today, which was
Yeah.
the first brow archer for me. They were going to watch it like in a neutral secret location, which is probably still the practice facility. They just didn't want anybody camping out there, I'm guessing. But they did say, hey, we're not doing a public thing. The last time I remember that, Chris, was 2007 when they did make the tournament. They won the NIT, and I'm trying to think what happened in the headlines after that season.
Huh.
Who was the coach then? Did he stick around? Can't remember.
Can't
I
remember,
don't know.
Michael.
Past is prologue, right?
Well,
But
hey, you mentioned it there. Is West Virginia going to play in the NIT or the
your better
something?
question is how many players will play in the NIT too.
Right. Because they're gonna
That'll
they
be
get
up.
an automatic one seed, right? If they accept as one of the
I don't know
first
how
four
that
out.
works. What is the crown, by the way?
Hey, something new, something. I'm interested to see what they decide to do. Because do you go there? Do you go to Vegas to that thing? Do you go to the NIT? Do you just say, hey, no thanks, and refocus on getting your roster next year, keeping your coach? Um,
Listen, that's the big deal right now. They will talk if I honestly do not know First of all, am I going to Vegas, Chris? Can you make that happen, or are you gonna pull
I
rank
don't
on
know. I
me?
thought you had tickets to Providence or Cleveland. Can you switch
I was really
those?
looking forward to going to Cleveland. I was like, the Marble Room was awesome. Let's go there. I'll see some friends and family and all that stuff. And then Lexington, I can entertain myself for a couple afternoons in Lexington for sure. But I don't know how this works. I don't know which one is the top priority. But yeah, like they would in the old days, they would be a one seed and have home games in the NIT. It would be a really bad look if you turn that down. It would be. You'd be. Listen, for me, it's a terrible optic. You'd be a sore sport. You
Yeah.
would say that only one thing matters, which is largely true, but you'd also be acknowledging what's going on, which is that most of your roster will not be back next year. You're developing a small number of players for the future. These are not guys that have played together for a bunch of years and want to go out with a bang and win the NIT. I don't know what money's involved in this. I'm sure it's an expense in some regard too, but also, Chris, also not in the NCAA tournament, Iowa and Indiana. They do not have to wait to do this now. And whomever
Oh
they're going
wait,
to
I thought
hire
Indiana made it. Did Indiana not make it?
did not make it.
Oh, okay.
They're not in the tournament. They're not going to have to wait around. And if you've watched like football or even college basketball in the past, coaches aren't going to wait. Like you have bowl games are different than the NCAA tournament. I understand that. I'm not sure the NIT or the CBI or the Crown is different than a bowl game. So if you're going to make a move as a coach or as a school, you're going to pounce now. So this disappointment that West Virginia is feeling had better be brief, and they better grab their armaments and get ready to go because there are going to be knocks on the door, and the phone is going to ring very soon. If it, I mean, it has already. I'm sure. I'm positive of that. Um, and this at least spares us the awkward conversation of like, don't forget, like Darian DeVries interviewed with West Virginia the day before they played Washington State last year in the NCAA tournament. So I imagine that his job situation is his priority, and he has no other distractions right now because I don't think that he's gonna say, hey, can we finish the NIT first before I talk to you? Those schools are gonna say no, absolutely not.
So heads up on this college basketball crown because I forgot about this little battle about automatic bids. Um, According to what I'm reading here, this is an old ESPN story, not old, like within the last few months. The NIT, starting this year, 2025 NIT, gives automatic bids to the ACC and the SEC because the college basketball crown provides two automatic qualifiers from each of the Big East, Big Ten, and Big 12.
Well, they would be one of the two for sure.
Yeah. So, hey, man, I'm kind of down with being. I mean, I don't know if this college basketball crown thing is going to stick around, but I'd be kind of down with being in the inaugural one, like being one of the top teams in this inaugural event rather than the NIT. Yeah, obviously rather be in the NCAA tournament, but wouldn't you rather go to that than the NIT again?
I'd rather have home games and make money.
How
I'd
much do you
rather
think they pay for the college basketball crown?
do you have to pay on like the CBI for that? I honestly don't know a whole lot about this, to be frank with you. I don't want to say I've forgotten about it, but it wasn't on my radar for, I mean, a couple of reasons. One, it's new. I have no background with it. And I honestly thought as recently as 5:59 p.m. that they'd be in the NCAA tournament.
Right.
Just the home games and like West Virginia scraped some revenue together for having home games. I don't know what they have to, I don't know if they have to buy into games for the crown. I don't know if they have to pay their travel or versus stipend. I don't know the finances there, but
Yeah.
an automatic bid is an automatic bid, and like playing a high level tournament in Vegas the first time. You know what, Chris? I'm kind of going back and forth in this. Would you rather have a home game against like I don't even know who'd be in your NIT this year. Um, yeah, I'd rather do the crown, I guess. If all
Yeah.
things are equal, I'd rather do the crown. And even if you have to spend a little bit, I'd rather do the crown.
Because I think it's only like 12 teams too, where is it at? It's also not as long as like the NIT. So you could bang out the college basketball crown and be done in like a couple of weeks. Um, is it 12? 10? No, 16. So it's 16 teams. So you'd be done with the college basketball crown in like 2 weeks. You could be moving on and be done with it. So yeah, put me
What
in.
does the
Put me
bracket
in
look
there.
like? Tell me more, Chris. Tell me more about the crown. Is it Is it like play on Monday, play on Wednesday, play on Friday?
No, I actually haven't even seen. I don't see a schedule yet. Here we go. College Basketball Crown website. So there's 16 teams, two automatic bids from March 31st, April 6th. It's a week and it's done. Here we go. Here's the schedule. Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday. Done. First round Monday, second round Wednesday, third round Saturday, championship game Sunday.
I got some Hunter S. Thompson in me. Let's do this. I'll go experiential. I'll go for a weekend in Vegas. I think West Virginia would be foolish to say no to either one of them. I think it's a bad look. I think you're extremely hypocritical at that point if you do that, and I would say that for any team. I just think that if you're that close to the NCAA tournament, you're adamant about playing in it, and you're bounced out, it has to matter at some point. I would not thumb my nose at the first crown. If I was not a top four seed in the NIT, I'd really think about it. The trouble is, Chris, you're going to have to talk to your players if they want to do it. Who wants to go into the transfer portal? Who wants to protect themselves for the NBA? Um, it's not as pro.
Indiana has already turned down the college basketball crown, by the way, related
So
news.
there's some, well, yeah, because they don't have a coach at the moment. Uh, that's a great question. I mean, that's a layer here that I mean, you really have to think about too. But you quiz your players, your staff, your head coach. Do you want to do this? Like, this is an athletic director to head coach question, a head coach to team question, and you figure out if indeed you want to do it.
Hmm. Yeah, I can't find anything on the finances. Like I can't find out if West Virginia gets paid or they have to pay to get in. So
Would you mind if I turn the light on in my house here?
go ahead, man.
All right, 1 second. Continue on. I'm gonna be gone for 2 seconds.
Okay, I'm looking it up. Yeah, I already see that Indiana is out. I'm wondering if any other teams. I see some people talking about it already on social media. Indiana has released that they're done, not taking part. Mike Woodson's career is over at Indiana. Could be interesting. Um, Man, there you go. I mean, I guess that answers the question of well, it might not answer the question, but it might lead us into the next conversation here about Darren DeVries and where he's coaching in 2025-26. We want
Well,
to
how do you
finish
want to
with
do
that
this,
real quick.
sir?
Yeah, let's do it.
Listen, it's tenuous. Absolutely, it's tenuous here. If West Virginia had a head coach who wanted to, no question to ask, be here right now, he would have signed a contract extension, and it would be announced. I think that you can put the pause on that during the regular season, and I know people don't like to hear that. I had some people get on me about that, like, how can you think that's normal? I don't think it's normal behavior. It's accepted behavior. Those are two different things. Um, but frequently, ADs and head coaches will hash out extensions in the season. And hey, I like this, let's do it. But man, can we just focus on the season? Chris, that's not abnormal, right? Am I
Yeah,
crazy? Okay.
no,
Guess what? Season's over. So if Darren DeVries is content with the contract extension that he and West Virginia have had discussions about and said, here's how it should look, here's how it should work, this many commas, this many zeros, this many years, whatever. Um, you know what? You're right. Let's focus on the season. Come back when you're done. Well, it's done. They can pick that up right now, and they could have a press release out tomorrow morning in conjunction with the Crown or the NIT or whatever they are or aren't going to do. It's not going to happen. West Virginia completely anticipates that he will be involved at Iowa for reasons that everybody knows. I think that was probably a possibility last year. They knew that when they hired him. Um, I've said this in the beginning, Indiana is going to be a factor here. People roll their eyes at that one there, but Indiana, the people that I know that I talk to, think that that is a legitimate player here, and that DeVries will have some obligation to pay attention there. And apparently that's happening. Like he's in their top group right now. And you could fill in the blanks in a lot of these things. And the concern there is that West Virginia can't do a lot about either one of those. West Virginia feels like it can fight Iowa where it has to fight Iowa. Is it a better job? It thinks so. Can it do more financially? NIL, resources, support, luxuries? It thinks so. It's not home. Indiana is not home, but West Virginia cannot say it's a top five, top 10 program in the country. which a lot of people still think Indiana is, and more importantly, has the potential to be. Indiana has taken football really, really seriously and turned things around. That money exists to do the same thing in basketball, and it's not as hard to turn that around there because it's Indiana basketball. West Virginia kind of knows it can't fight Indiana where it can fight Iowa. So those are major concerns. I'm positive that Indiana has told West Virginia that DeVries is going to be a candidate and they want to talk to him for the simple fact that their search firm is Turnkey ZRG. That's the same one that West Virginia used to go for Darian DeVries. That's the same one that West Virginia used to go to Ren Baker. People around West Virginia know people at Turnkey ZRG, and those people talk, Chris. So a lot of these rumors, I don't think are rumors. I think that they're probably based in reality. Um, and Iowa is just, it's apparent. Like West Virginia knows that he's going to talk to them if only to say he's going to talk to him. You can't say no to Iowa. You can say no, you don't want the job, but you can't say no, I don't want to interview. Unless you really want to be at West Virginia and you want to get this done right now. And that's not up to me, to you, to Twitter accounts, to national reporters. That's up to the head coach right now of West Virginia. And he's going to do what he does in the next couple of days here. And I don't think it's going to be anything to end the speculation. I think this will go on for a little bit. But now, Chris, that sand timer is turned upside down because none of these teams have NCAA tournament basketball playing in front of them. Iowa's probably not a postseason team. Indiana has taken. Indiana has said no to the NIT, and West Virginia has a future undetermined right now.
All right. Indiana's out. West Virginia's out. Iowa's out. All the players that we're talking about in the Darren DeVries game. How long does this go on? I didn't mean to startle you there. Sorry. And now you've unplugged yourself. You're so startled you've unplugged yourself.
Yeah, so new internet in the house to people who are watching and listening. That's why I'm not in my office, and it's a little shaky right now too. I this has to be done soon, Chris, because both these teams want to move fast. Well, all three of these teams want to move fast.
Yeah.
West Virginia has a recruiting class. The transfer portal will be open not too long. It's and like again, the big thing is that neither one of these teams that West Virginia is going up against has a game coming up. So what are they going to do? They're going to try to hire a coach and they're going to try to get going with their offseason and their recruiting and their transfer portal. This is not going to last. Chris, we're going to have a conversation before next Sunday about the end of this conversation. I don't about this whole situation speculation. I don't believe it lasts that long.
Okay. Well, Mike, I think we better wrap this up, get this up, and get prepared for whatever's coming. Because shame on you for leaving the hot board basement. So get your internet fixed, get back down in the hot board basement, start cooking something up. Just in case. Just in case.
Okay. I have names.
Okay. Don't.
And listen,
Not right now. Don't.
I haven't gotten names from people who said, here's who they're going to talk to, but like I paid enough attention to the Iowa or the Indiana search, and again, they have the same search firm. West Virginia has done 2 searches in the last 2 years, so some of the candidates are the same. I think you could bump some people up that you haven't before, but I also think, Chris, that you can expand the search if this does happen because there was a reservation about hiring Ben McCollum. He's new to Division One. That reservation does not exist anymore. Like if Indiana is indeed interested in him and I was indeed interested in him, yeah, I think West Virginia would be. Would you take Drake's coach again? I don't think so. But would you say no to a coach because he's not experienced? And is it him? Is it Bucky McMillan? Is it Ross Dodge? Um, I think those guys get elevated in any conversation now. I think that's different. I still think you're looking at a sitting head coach who's not from a major conference if this does happen, just because, and I read about this today, you're not seeing high major coaches leave for high major jobs. It just doesn't happen. I think I counted 19 in the past 12 years out of 81 programs. That's a low ratio. So there is no hot board on paper. In my attic, yeah, sometimes. Sometimes I go upstairs and I move some boxes around and I try to get in there. I can definitely empty the attic and put something on the front yard soon.
Boy. All right.
Will I? We'll see. I do have to quit my job though, Chris, because Oklahoma made the tournament, so I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah,
Is this
this
my
is gonna
two
be
weeks
difficult.
notice, or am I just going to walk out and just take another job somewhere else, which seems to be a distinct possibility for some people around here. We'll see.
2 weeks. 2 weeks notice still gives enough time to do 2 weeks of hot board work. So don't worry about it. That's
Yeah,
fine.
shoot. That's like 10 versions.
Yeah, at
All right.
least.
Okay, I enjoyed this. Just bang my head into a wall for a couple more weeks. We'll be good. You all right, that,
Yep.
Chris?
All right.
All right. Until then, I'm Mike Casaza.
I'm Chris Anderson.
We will talk to you then.